Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Adrenal Fatigue Podcast. We are so excited to dive into a really important topic with you today. Today, we're talking about environmental toxins. This is something we don't often consider when it comes to our health when we have burnout or chronic conditions, but it's something critical that we can't overlook because it truly creates such a big impact. These environmental toxins are stressors on our nervous system, our endocrine system, our immune system, and our body as a whole. And it's something that we must be aware of if we want to have great health. So today we're blessed to be joined by the co-author of Dirty Girl, Wendie Trubow, to talk about this really important topic. We're going to talk about what these chemicals are, what they do to the body, where we're exposed to them, and most of all, what we can do about it day to day in our everyday lives to protect ourselves. It's going to be an amazing conversation. So thanks for being here and thanks for listening. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Wendie Trubow. She's a certified practitioner and is passionate about helping women optimize their health and their lives as a functional medicine gynecologist. Through her struggles with mold and metal toxicity, celiac disease, and other health issues, Trubow has developed a deep sense of compassion and expertise for what her patients are facing. She's the co-author of Dirty Girl, Ditch the Toxins, Look Great, and Feel Freaking Amazing, and has been regularly featured in My Body Green and Huffington Post. She's an accomplished speaker and previously had her own TV show. She's on the faculty at A4M American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine and a speaker for their conferences, along with other national societies. She and her partner will be releasing their next book in mid-2023. Dr. Trubow, thank you so much for being here to chat about this important topic. We're thrilled to have you.
My pleasure. This is going to be fun and hopefully rewarding and valuable for people.
Definitely. So what are some of the most common types and sources of environmental toxins these days?
Okay. When we started this whole process, it was because I was a hot flippin' mess, right? Like had lost half the hair on my head. I had a rash on my face. I had a rash on my eyelids, at my nose, and here. I don't even know what this is called, but right there. So I wanted to rip my face off most days. It's like, I'm so itchy. And I had gained 10 pounds. So when we first started this whole process, it was this kind of overwhelming web of, oh my gosh, toxins are everywhere. What am I going to do? So what I started to do is think of it like there's 3 buckets that you can start to think of how you're getting exposed. And then we'll talk about the different buckets of toxins. But the ways you get exposed to, first, you put things in your body. So that's the food you're eating, the breaths you take when you have toxins in the air, the water you're drinking, whether it's either not clean water or whether you're drinking it from something that's adding chemicals into your water, like a single-use plastic water bottle adds endocrine disruptors into your water. It's having additives that you're not happy about, right? I'm always psyched about minerals and nutrients, but I'm not psyched about those. One way you get it is putting it in your body. It's also where the food comes from. And then the next way you get exposed is, especially as women, what we put on our body. So the beauty products, the things we use to clean our hair, moisturize, dye our hair, all the things we're putting on our body, we're exposed to something like 250 chemicals before we've even left the house because of all the things we put on our bodies. And then the third category, it's a huge category, and it's the one where it's everything else, right? So it's what you're sitting on, sleeping on, the air and water quality, the chemicals that your neighbor sprays on their yard. It's really this massive kind of thing. What are you cleaning your house with? What are you painting your house with? What are you doing the construction with? What do you run your laundry detergent? What laundry detergent are you using? That's the, oh my gosh, it's very overwhelming conversation, but that's because that's all around us. So those are the 3 ways that we get exposed. And then when we dive in more, we go, okay, how do you think about these? Does it fall into heavy metals, which are typically the ones we really, I would say, pay attention to and worry most about would be lead, mercury, cadmium, thallium, arsenic. Those are the big 5. And then mycotoxins. 50% of buildings have had a water damage event. And so that means that it's statistically probable that you've either lived in, worked in, or gone to school in and hung out in a place that has water damage, which means you were exposed to mold and mycotoxins. And that mycotoxins is just the fancy word for when molds get into your body, they release toxins. Those are called mycotoxins. So mycotoxins is the second bucket. And then the third is the environmental ones, which is the vegan leather that we're so happy to, no cow had to die for this chair to be produced, but now we're sitting on plastic. And so it's a mixed bag. So those are the three ways to think about it and the three ways to figure out where you're getting exposure from.
Yeah. Thank you for breaking it down so clearly and beautifully for us. One thing that came to mind when you were sharing is, they say you are what you eat, which you mentioned the food. One thing that we always say around here too is you are what you absorb.
Yeah.
And so going through this list that you just shared, it's like it can be so overwhelming and we do have some control. And I know we're going to chat about that some of these exposures are easier to control than others. That's the beautiful thing. We do have a bit of power. We don't have all the power in some cases. I'm thinking like I used to live in Korea and I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I was exposed to everything there, especially
Yeah.
environmentally,
Yeah.
that you can be more mindful about what you're using and eating.
I think it's really important, especially when we talk about adrenal fatigue and recovery and energy, that it's really important not to step over that your thoughts can be toxic. And I'll share with you, I stopped drinking 17 years ago because I have adrenal fatigue and I noticed that I didn't feel well when I drank. And I'm not a big drinker. I don't really care. I like a sweet wine and I don't eat sugar. So that's it, right? I'm not doing that. But I think it was like 5 years ago, we took everyone out to California and we were in Palm Springs, but then had to travel to Los Angeles for a conference. And so we left the kids with my mom in Palm Springs and we're driving and it's like, I don't know, a couple hour drive. We're in the left-hand lane. There are these massive barriers on our left, massive, like you can't go anywhere because it's right at the edge of the lane. And then there's a car right next to us. So here's us and here's another car. And then there's another car right in the third lane diagonally across. And at the corner of my eye, I see that car 2 lanes over swerve. And a million thoughts go through my brain at once. So the first thought is, they're going to hit the car that's diagonally in front of us, and that car's going to swerve into our lane, and we've got nowhere to go. My second thought is, oh my God, my mom's with all of my kids in California. We live in Boston. And if we die, this is going to be such a mess. And oh God, we're going to die in a car accident. I had all these like crazy thoughts. And then I started yelling to my husband who was driving, brake, brake. He understood me. I don't know how he understood me because I was like a crazed human at that point. And he slows down. There's no one behind us. He slows down. The car next to us swerves right in front of us. Nobody got hurt. This is the take home message. I was not hurt. We didn't get in a car accident. We didn't orphan my children. The car ahead of us didn't even get hit. Nobody got hurt. Nobody got hit except for me. 2 days, I was like this, heart palpitations, jittery. So I say this because the thoughts you have can support your process of recovery or they can tank your recovery. And it was in that moment I said to my husband, oh, I guess my adrenals aren't as resilient as I thought they were. I thought I was beyond this. I felt post-call when I had been up for 36 hours, like a jittery mess. And so it's really easy to use up your reserves, but it's very important to think that to remember and to train your thoughts to be powerful because you have this thought, we're going to die. That's a super disempowering thought. And then the whole cascade sets off of you're not detoxing. You're using up your bank account of energy. You're shutting down your gut. And none of this is in our favor, right? So it's really important to remember, like you have total agency over the thoughts you have, right? Some of them are unconscious, but when you get conscious, you can alter that narrative. So you always have control.
Yeah. I love that you said that. I know Angela's going to have you're going to have something great to say, but I think that this is something that our community needs to hear because there's a lot of people who have categorized themselves as environmental sensitivity folk, which they are, but it becomes almost instilled in them that fear when you're going out into public grocery stores and such that you're exposed to something. And then because you felt that way, it's almost like it's more mental than it might have been physical in a lot of cases. So I
Yeah, well,
love that you
totally
bring that up.
PTSD, total emotional PTSD from like an exposure.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was pretty much going to say. But thank you for bringing it into the picture because it is so important. And like you said,
Yeah.
Danielle, a lot of people categorize themselves as sensitive or oversensitive. And I think it's what I like to change the narrative is, wow, I'm super aware that my body is actually communicating with me so effectively. And that's the different change of the different story. And that is way more empowering. And so, yeah, we do have so much control. So thank you for bringing that in. And a lot of times we can go to worst case scenario. And it's okay to recognize what you're feeling and the fact that you're going to that place of fear right away or worst case scenario. And it's also knowing that we can change it. It's not that we're not going to have those moments, especially in a situation where you're in the car and people are moving fast. It's like totally natural to have those thoughts come in, especially if you have trauma prior. I think it's just in that moment realizing these are the thoughts. These thoughts are going through my head. And how can I change this actually? How can I use the power of my mind to actually kind of change not only what's happening internally, but externally as well? So that's pretty awesome. Thank you for bringing that into the conversation. Thoughts are powerful. And the thoughts create emotions, and those emotions in our body are really important, how they play into our overall health as well. We know that those connections, and yeah, it's a really important part of the conversation. And I know so many are just by sharing the beginning of your conversation, it can be really overwhelming to think, how can we avoid these things? We can't. And I'm so excited to dive deeper in that later here in our conversation. But I want to talk a little bit more about, I think people would like to know like more about how these environmental toxins actually affect their health and the immunity, like what that looks like.
All right. So this is the bad news bear part of the conversation. Okay. So let's take a step back. When you look at your health, I have this great slide, which I don't have access to in this moment. I didn't think to have it like pulled up, but think of your health like a hamburger. Okay. And if you're vegan, think of it like a veggie burger. So one part of the bun is your genetics. One part of the bun is your environment. Now, in between that is all the stuff that you're going to do. So you eat, you sleep, you poop, you think, you connect, you move, you have intimacy with others, you dream, you exercise. All of those things are the behaviors of life, right? So then you put this multi-layered burger, I'll just say burger for the vegetarian. You put this veggie burger together and you have this smush, right? So it's not like you can say, oh, this is the thing, right? This is what it is. But so the reason I'm saying this is when you put this whole big smush together, then imagine you throw it into a bowl of soup and you blend it with your hand blender. So now you're like, I have no idea what these ingredients are. So I'm saying this because if you're human, and obviously you are, you're listening to this, as a human, you're going to manifest in a million different ways. So how I manifested with the crossing my own line in the sand of toxins exposure for what my body could get rid of, right? I was creeping along and then got a massive exposure and gained 9 pounds, lost the hair in my head and had this rash. Mine is going to look different than someone else's. Like someone else might get a chronic disease, an autoimmune disease, a degenerative disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, you name it. Irritable bowel, headaches, joint pain, fatigue, infertility, bad periods, heavy periods, infrequent periods. Everyone can manifest in the way that their body's prone to. And that's based on just you and the way your body shows up. But so I say this because it's really, if you have a symptom, it can track back to toxins. And it's not only always toxins, meaning it is, right? Because you can have a food that you're reacting negatively to, and that's a food acting as a toxin for you. So when you think about it's a trigger basically, and it can span the thoughts you're having, the food you're eating, the things that are around you, the exposures you're having, the PTSD that you have that continues to leave changes in your epigenetics. And so you're more prone to manifesting a disease. There's a lot of ways it shows up for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. It's compounding. And I think it's okay. So how can we actually take parts of that burger, take the pickles out, or what are the different pieces, right, that we can manage?
Yes.
We're not going to be able to control the environmental toxins in our external world all of the time, most of the time. So what can we take out of the burger or the veggie burger in order to have ourselves be more resilient overall and be able to take on these toxins? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that we can do. So I'm a huge fan of going low hanging fruit and free to then really super expensive. So when we start with what can you do? First off, train your brain. Train your brain, train your brain, train your brain. What do I mean by that? We're all really programmed to have thoughts like, you suck, you stink at this. Oh, look, you're a failed again. Oh, nobody loves you and nobody's going to love you. Like all these thoughts are so mean. So the first thing is train your brain so that those thoughts start to convert to something that are, first off, real, because none of those are real. You're not a failure. Everybody loves you. None of that's true. You just live like it's true. So convert those thoughts so that they empower you. I have 4 kids. They are not allowed to say, I can't do that. Whenever they say that, I'm like, no, trying it. They're like, oh, I can't do that yet, or haven't mastered it yet. Because that gives you an opportunity to be human and continue to strive as opposed to shut the door. Like, you don't want to shut the door on your health. So train your brain. It's free. It's a lifetime process. Keep training your brain, right? And then the next thing that I love for people is as you run out of your beauty product, that's a huge opportunity to start to improve what you're being exposed to. So first off, test, don't test. What do I mean by that? Don't assume that what you have is bad. Maybe it's good. I found a couple products as I went through this that I was like, oh, like I was using a physician's formula bronzer that turns out that it was rated as like a number 1 or 2 by Environmental Working Group. And so I thought, oh, I nailed it. But then there were some products that I was like, oh yeah, I know these got to go. So what I would say is go to Environmental Working Group, check to see what you're being exposed to in the beauty product you are running out of. Don't do this for the 50 things, right? It's too overwhelming. Pick the thing you're running out of, and that's the point at which you level up. So you're not going to throw it out. You're not going to get rid of everything at once. You're not going to clear the slate. You're going to say, okay, one thing at a time. So start to level up as you go. Then there's things like test your water. The municipality that you live in, if you have city water or town water, they're required to test it. And so Environmental Working Group has essentially collected all of that data. So you can look up your town's water on Environmental Working Group, or you can look up your town directly. So if your water isn't so good, or if it has high particulate matter, then I would say, okay, filter the water that you're drinking. If it has high perchlorate, reverse osmosis so you can get rid of the perchlorate. Perchlorate is chlorine, and it's an endocrine disruptor. So start to peel off the things that can be torturing you. And then check your air quality. That's probably going to require a company to come check your house, but come check your air quality. And if your air quality is not optimal, filter your air. You can either go 1 room, 1 car, or the whole house. But that reminds me, anytime you get a new car, filter that air because there's 300 chemicals in it. That new car smell is super toxic for you. Filter it out. Now, let me pause there because I could go on, but let's start with, are there questions?
Right. I just wanted to come back to, I'm sure Danielle has something to chime in, but those fragrances is such a big,
Yes.
I think of just very common cleaners and the laundry detergents that some people have. It's just so powerful. And you have to remember that those things that have really powerful scents come with a cost. And so but like you're saying, I love that you brought in changing your thoughts to be the first thing, because again, this can all be very overwhelming. You think, oh my gosh, I got to, take out all my beauty products and I have to test my water. It can be very expensive and take a lot of time and energy. But like you said, changing your thoughts doesn't. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't come with, a lot of that is from trauma. I mean, not to go down this road too much, but a lot of times we have these thoughts and beliefs about ourselves or the world because of how we grew up and the traumas that we had. And it's worth it, but doing that work, and why our program is very holistic and we're addressing all of these pieces, especially the thoughts and our beliefs. And so anyway, I love that you brought that up and being the first and foremost, because if we don't have that in check, it can really get to feel like too much. And when we start having agency, like you said, over those thoughts and knowing that we can actually make a difference, and the way that we think about the world around us does affect us.
Yeah. So let me add more things, but I just want to make sure that I wasn't bulldozing over like, the roadmap. By the way, that's why we wrote the book, right? Because it's a roadmap for cleaning up your life and taking back the agency. But I did not say food. And so I want to go back to the things, like you said, you are what you eat. And so again, the first thought people have is, oh, I could never do that. Okay, so that's a thought that's totally not empowering. The question is, how can I make this work for me? That's the question you want to ask yourself. So how can you take wherever you are and get to a place where you're leveling up? Do you have to be perfect? No. Perfection is only existing on like the Hollywood screen where they've edited it like crazy. That's not real. That's fake, right? So look at, what can I do that's going to be a sustainable improvement in the way I eat? Can I eliminate artificial colors, artificial flavors, as much sugar as I can? Can I eliminate those things? Can I minimize the amount of ways my food has been processed before I put it in my mouth? Except for chewing. Chewing does not count as processing. Okay. You want to chew your food a lot, but that's not processing. That's just breaking it down. So the next level to that is how much can you level up around organic versus non-organic? And this is a challenging thing depending on where you live. So I would say go by the Environmental Working Group's yearly list of the Dirty Dozen. These are the 12 dirtiest foods with the highest pesticide residue on them that you're going to want to try to get organic, because it's essentially just putting it right in your body. So any way you can, level up. If you eat meat, or flesh, work on eating the cleanest flesh you can. Federal guidelines in America don't allow for the use of hormones in chicken and poultry, but they do allow antibiotic use. They don't require that they're fed a particular way. So always look for, what are you eating and how clean can you get it? Can you get, for beef, can you get grass-fed, grass-finished? Because that's what meat is supposed to be eating. That's what cows are supposed to be eating. They're not supposed to be eating grain. It messes them up. It makes their bodies more acidic. It makes them have more methane gas when they have gas. So it's not good for them. So aim for eating the cleanest meat you can. And then the Clean 15 on the Environmental Working Group is a list of foods that you can reasonably buy and not be organic. So go by those every year, the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. That'll give you a guidepost for, okay, these are the priorities, right? And then if you can level up even more, if your budget allows for it, awesome. I always feel like frozen veggies are a fantastic way to get organic, especially things like spinach. Most of us don't eat raw spinach. We cook it. So if you're going to cook it anyway, get it frozen. It's very economical. Or if you're going to throw it in a smoothie, you can get it frozen. So think about ways that you can make it work on your budget, or like Costco has things for much less money. Some of the local places that we go to, it's like Aldi, Market Basket, they're a lot less expensive than Whole Foods. And if you do a 1-for-1 replacement, you'll still get organic, but it'll cost you less.
I love that. And on the topic of price, I feel like we're living in a time where there's so much accessible to us now. I was actually at Sephora last week, and I hadn't been there in so long, but they have products there now that are actually certified by the Environmental Working Group, but they're pricey. And then I think I sampled them out. I actually bought one of them, and I've been like, it's lovely, but you can also, it doesn't have to be like something very high end and expensive, which I think sometimes we think about when we think about switching to clean products, or we think about organic. Like, there are economical ways to switch to a cleaner deodorant or cleaner beauty products. And that's the beauty of where we are right now with this like more towards health movement, which is pretty cool.
There's tons of ways. And I was just thinking about, it's funny, I use this moisturizer on my face. It's beef tallow. Get it from grass-fed cows. And excuse me, they render the fat and then they put a little fragrance in it of essential oils, and then they sell it, kind of coagulates and they sell it. And so that's what I use. And it's pricey for a bottle, but the bottle lasts me 6 months.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I guess when you think about it, I'm really only spending like $10 a month for moisturizer. It's not a whole body. I only use it on my face because it's too coagulated. You have to warm it to dissolve, almost make it in. It's like coconut oil. You have to do that. But yeah, even thinking of that, you could use coconut oil on your face. You can use olive oil on your faces. There's a lot of things you can use. Like I just made, drives my oldest hates arrowroot. I don't know why. She can't stand the consistency of it because it's almost like crinkly. So I just made a dry shampoo myself because I bought a thing. It's this big and it costs like $20. And I was snookered in. And then I thought to myself, all right, it's got rice powder, cocoa, charcoal, and arrowroot. I could probably make that, right? Like I can do that myself. So slowing down enough to think about, what do you need to buy versus what can you make yourself? Because I'm not huge on DIY because I'm overwhelmed, but that I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially dry shampoo. I feel like if you look, there's some of them out there that I'm not even joking are like $60 plus with some of these like fancier brands. And it's literally what you said, arrowroot powder, cornstarch probably, but you could do it cleaner kind of thing.
Oh, so so dry shampoo, you use it if you don't have time to shower. It absorbs the oil and you just rub it in and then you're good and gives you some fluff. Yeah, I literally made my own. I looked up a recipe online and I was like, okay, here's what I have. And if you're blonde, you don't put the charcoal and the cocoa in. And if you're brunette, you do. If you're redhead, I have no idea what you would use.
Maybe some like beet powder or something. You'd get crafty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fun.
even just household cleaners. I use vinegar for most of the cleaning in our house, and you can use baking soda. There's really simple things you can buy in bulk from Costco, and they clean just as well or better than maybe some over-the-counter things that have a bunch of other chemicals. So yeah, there's lots of ways to DIY it that can be very affordable. So
Yeah.
I'm sure there's tons of blogs out there for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So cool. So, is there any misunderstandings about toxins that we should be aware about?
Tons. Tons. Okay. So one huge myth that I would say is people think that they'll be done at some point getting rid of them from their bodies. And really, you're never done. It's just it's essentially applying the principles of continuous process improvement to your body. So instead of looking at the machine and continuous process improve, we are in the machine and continuously improve the process of this machine. And I mean, I've been doing heavy detox for about 4 years, and we got an infrared sauna about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And so I use it like 5 times a week. And so I'll start to get arrogant, like, oh, I must be so detox. And then I have this moment where I walk through Bloomingdale's and I go, yeah, no, I'm really not, because I'm inhaling all of those perfumes and scents and fragrances. And so we're never done. It's the myth is that you can nail it once and then be done. No, you need to get rid of the massive exposures that are messing up your health, that are draining your adrenal health, that are messing up your gut, your liver. And then once you've gotten to below your tipping point, you want to maintain it. So that's one huge myth, is that you'll really be done. And then another one I would say is we're all really focused on not having BPA, which is great. BPA is terrible for you. It's what makes the plastic soft. Excuse me, when they replaced BPA and got rid of it, they replaced it with stuff that's just as toxic. It just hasn't been studied as much. So another myth that I would like to bust is that plastic is okay. Plastic's really challenging. Think of it in a gradation. Try to avoid the single-use plastic. If you need plastic, like I have plastic on my metal containers, right? And then food rules are you never fill the container so much that the food is against the plastic. So it's just literally working as a cover. You're living in this earth, right? So if you have leftovers like we do, God, there's so many people in our house, we always have leftovers. So we needed something to store the food. So we have metal containers with a hard plastic top. So going back to plastic, try to avoid the single use and work on hard plastic. It's a little better, but don't put try not to have your hot food touching it. Really keep it cool against that to minimize the transfer of the plastic into your food. Okay. Other myths. There's just tons. The biggest one is probably when it says all natural and good for you. It might be all natural and good for you, but it might not be. So don't get greenwashed, because another myth, companies don't necessarily have to prove it, which is why, even though it is more expensive for Environmental Working Group seal of approval, that's what it is. The other way you can do it is to look the product up on Think Dirty or Environmental Working Group and see, is it what they claim it is? I was so psyched. I got these little pods for my laundry detergent. I was on Facebook and I'm scrolling through and I see this ad for all natural laundry detergent. I'm so psyched. Do you know how much laundry we have with all the people in our house? It's a lot. So I'm so psyched. It's in this fragrance-free thing and it dissolves and it's supposed to be good for the earth and it doesn't have any of the harmful chemicals, or so I think. And it comes in a cardboard container, so it's not plastic. I'm like really psyched. So I order a 4-month supply on auto ship. And then I don't think about it again. And about 5 months later, we get the second shipment. And I'm just sitting there thinking, I never looked this up on Environmental Working Group. So I went and looked it up. And it was not highly rated. It was like a 5 or 6. And I thought to myself, okay, self, you got whitewashed again. So have some. And then I said to my coach, I can't believe I got whitewashed or greenwashed. And she goes, this is a perfect story for your audience, right? Like your humanity, you're always going to be human and you're always going to screw it up. So have some compassion and a sense of humor, like, oh, wow, we washed our clothes and then I used it up. So it was like 8 months that we used it for before I actually was able to up our game. So it's a constant process of improvement and you're going to screw it up. have compassion for yourself when you look at like common misconceptions. So don't go by the greenwashing on the package, go by the data, which is Environmental Working Group or Think Dirty. They're going to tell you, is it safe or not?
Yeah. Even just something says natural, like a peanut butter, I think just look on the back. What are the ingredients inside of it? Extra oils and things that you really don't need that just, like you said, like just peeling back, like what are the little things you can do to take that stress, any stress off the body and just have something that's much more easy for the body to process.
Yep.
It's
Such
happened.
that's
It happens a lot. And I love that you bring that up. And I
yeah.
just feel like your intentions were good. So don't give yourself too much. We do the best we can in that moment, and just, yeah, we're always learning.
Good intentions, bad outcomes. That's what I say to
Yeah.
people.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about which supplements, if any, should we be exploring for a better overall immunity, resiliency, and why?
Okay. I think you have to first ask, what are you treating? Right? So if you're treating, I want to optimally detox. Before you ever get to supplements, you have to address the foundation of your behavior. So that was where I was talking about you need to sleep enough every night. You need to eat high quality food. You need to move your body and sweat. You need to have healthy relationships. You need to manage your brain. You need to connect with others. Those are the foundational things. Like you can take the most expensive, best supplements in the world, but if you abuse your body, they're not going to work. So those are foundational. You cannot get around them. Like you can't just supplement your way into health with a lifestyle that's unhealthy. So having said that, there are categories of things like the adrenal glands love B vitamins and they love adaptogens, which support their ability to get what they need and either boost up or quiet down. That can help with energy, with sleep, with focus, with brain function. And then if you're trying to support detox, you need to support the gut. So I'm a huge fan of a fiber that's made of the konjac root. So when you're looking at detox, you need to support the gut. And I'm a huge fan of the konjac fiber. It's called propylmanin, and fiber is great for the gut, both soluble and insoluble. It helps bulk it up. It helps bind to toxins. Think of it like your organic cleaner, right? It's going to clean out all the waste that you don't want in the gut and move it out so that it can leave your body. So when you're supporting detox, you want to make sure that you poop every day before you even get to supplements for optimal health. You want to make sure that your gut's working because your gut runs your body. The gut is the center of your body. It's totally the director of everything. So are you pooping every day? Is it a good quality? Meaning the best days are which you have a poop and it's 10 inches long and it's a nice pipe. And you go, oh, look at that. And you're really proud of yourself, right? So to support that, I'm a huge fan of magnesium. I'm a huge fan of aloe in limited amounts. I'm a huge fan there's a bunch of different supplements that'll support the gut in contracting and moving. But I would start typically with fiber and with magnesium. This magnesium citrate form of magnesium helps pull water into the gut and helps it contract. So I'm a tremendous fan of those two things just to start getting the gut in order. And then you can work on, okay, how do we improve the liver detox, right? So the liver loves the B vitamins, antioxidants, alpha lipoic acid, N-acetylcysteine, glutathione, vitamin C, turmeric, ginger, curcumin. All of these things are supportive in normal function. So it depends what you're trying to fix or what you're trying to support, because there's no shortage of things that you can take.
Yeah. I knew that this was a bit of a loaded question, but I do appreciate you sharing some of your favorites and your go-tos. We always say when it comes to supplements, and first, like going back, I love what you said about the fiber and the magnesium. I think that's such a great place to start. And so many of these things, like it all connects, right? You're supporting
Right.
detox, you're supporting the gut, but you're also supporting adrenals. So we hit a couple birds with one stone.
Yeah,
And we
there's
always,
a ton of overlap, right? It's not just, you can't think of it like, oh, I'm only fixing this. No, if you fix your adrenals, you're going to fix your detoxing your gut because your adrenals, think about when your adrenals are stressed and they say to the rest of the system, stop the presses, no detoxing, no pooping, no digesting. We're going to shut that down. So it makes so much sense to fix. It really is all of you, right? It's the whole.
Yeah, so true. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So, if we were to do one thing in our lifestyle that could make a really big impact, you've shared a lot of tips, but if there's one thing we could eliminate completely in an ideal world, what would you say?
Oh, I'm totally commitment phobic, Danielle. So
Yeah.
could the one thing be a group of things, right? So I would say if you're gonna do something, focus on the foundations of your life. So get enough sleep as often as you can. I would say that was the biggest benefit for COVID for me was that because the kids didn't have to be brought to school and they weren't going to as many or any activities, we all got a lot more sleep. And I noticed instead of thinking that I was fine on 7 hours of, and I used to call it 7 hours of sleep, but it was really 7 hours in bed. So 7 hours in bed does not equal 7 hours of sleep. It equals somewhere between 6 and 6.5 hours of sleep. And it wasn't enough. Most of us, especially women, need more sleep than we're getting. So I would say focus on sleep, focus on relationships that empower you, focus on eating food that's as clean as possible and minimizing your alcohol and your sugar. If you do those four things, that's going to and move your body. Those five things are going to bring you a long way.
Yeah.
And then there's the nuances. Like I'm a terrible absorber. I had celiac for 20 years. My gut just needs extra. So I personally take a ton of supplements, but you might not need that, right? Or the listeners might not need that. If you don't have the same issues I did with all the toxins and all of the autoimmune craziness, you might find that you're $1,000,000 if you can just peel off the massive stressors and the not sleeping. That goes a long way.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because those foundations are exactly what we teach in our Fatigue to Fabulous program for anybody out there needing guidance on that. But it's essential. And when you get those foundations in check, it supports total, the whole picture, like you
Yeah.
mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I feel like those are manageable. It makes everything seem a lot less overwhelming.
So when you think about that, I'm thinking, okay, the five things I just said, you really can do them in parallel, right? So you go, okay, if I drink alcohol, cut down by 50%, and then do that for a couple of weeks and then cut that down by 50%, and then cut that down, right? Just keep cutting down. And if you eat sugar, do the same thing. But at the same time, you can also say, I'm going to take a walk today. I didn't take a walk yesterday and walk fast. Don't stroll. You know, my husband and I go for a walk and I'm like, dude, you got to keep up. Like, you got to walk faster. We want to break a sweat here. And he's I forgot why I don't like having a walking meeting with you because I'm short of breath. And I'm like, we got to walk faster. Otherwise, why bother? Go for a walk. So you can do that. And then you can move your bedtime back by 15, 20 minutes. And I'm not talking about hours, but move it back by 15 or 20 minutes. Do that for 2 weeks, then move it back by 15 or 20 minutes. After 2 months, you're going to bed an hour earlier than you were because most of us stay up too late.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it makes it more manageable. It makes it more sustainable. Because what I
Yeah.
find is you listen to a podcast like this, you go all in, you change everything, and
Yeah.
that just doesn't feel sustainable. And it's so easy to fall off track. And then you feel guilty. And then there's all these things that kind of go along with that. But this breaks it down in a way that you're checking off the list every day with little things that are slowly changing and building up those foundations. And that's such a beautiful thing.
You just said something that reminded me that we should talk about. So a lot of women, I only see women in my practice, and it's always like the confessional booth. Forgive me, Dr. T. Most of them are on the phone, right? Dr. T, I cheated. I'm like, okay, there's no cheating in Trubow land. This is not how we talk. So you may have eaten something that didn't work for you, or done something that didn't work for you, or had something that was off your plan, but you didn't cheat. You had an excursion. And in my world, you need to plan for your excursions. You need to actually know, oh, I'm going to a wedding. Guess what? You're going to drink alcohol, you're going to eat sugar, and you're going to stay up too late. Plan it. Most of us were like, I'm on a diet. I despise the word diet because you have to die. You die to do it. It's in the word. You die to do it. So no more dieting. There's plans that are sustainable and manageable and scalable. And then there's things that are temporary. So to me, a diet is temporary. When you're on a diet, it's very restrictive, right? I can do this. I can't do that. And then you inevitably go off your diet because you're stuck. So instead, what I recommend is looking for, hey, these are the lanes I tend to drive in because they work for me. And if I do too much outside my lane, I don't feel good. So I don't drink alcohol because I don't feel good when I drink. But if I want to have a sip, I can have a sip. But it's like not making it where we can't win. So essentially, plan ahead when you're having a birthday party. Like, we're starting birthday season in a week in our house. So we have 8 birthdays in a 6-week period. All we do is celebrate, right? So for that period, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a bite of cake on my oldest child's birthday. And then I'm not going to sweat it, right? Because I'm going to go back to it works for me when I don't eat sugar. But there's flexibility here. Does that make sense? Like, it's not about being rigid. It's about just being able to navigate the twists and turns in the road so that you have some space to forgive yourself. So instead of saying, I'm on a diet and I cheated, I fell off the wagon, and then that's the excuse not to take care of yourself for the next 6 to 8 months because screw it. No, I'm going to have an excursion. And then the next morning, I'm going to get on my plan and back on what works for me. But I'm going to have the excursion. I'm going to choose the excursion as opposed to being the victim of, I couldn't help it. No, plan it. Actually choose it powerfully instead of being like not able to and then feel like, oh, you're a failure. You're not a failure. You're just too much coming at you.
Yeah. This conversation's totally my jam. Like I work a lot with nutrition, right? And so that's one thing I say, it's like picking your battles because you can eat like a complete angel, like picture perfect diet, and you could celebrate your birthday or have one of these nights where you have the cake. And it's just having the awareness that tomorrow you'll probably have cravings, but that's okay because you have tools in place that you can manage the cravings. It's not just letting things run rampant from there. But I love what you said. It's like you're driving in the lane, but it doesn't have to be rigid.
Yeah, there's off ramps, right?
Yeah.
You can take an off ramp and then take an on ramp.
Yeah.
Get on and off. And it's so funny. I really have struggled with sugar craving and craving of feeling insatiable. So no matter how much I ate, it wouldn't be enough. And I have found two things I'll offer to the audience. One is the insatiable feeling often is an adrenal issue, right? The adrenals are stressed and they think they have to run from a lion. And so what they're telling you is you need to eat food and feed me because I need to eat. So if you have those senses, it's often you need to really work on stress reduction, as I did. And then the sugar craving thing, you can get a handle on candida. Candida is often what causes people to crave sugar. However, when you have heavy metals, it's really hard to get a handle on candida. So I've been doing metals treatment for almost 4 years, and I have gone in and out of candida treatment. And I find that when I'm not on the metals treatment, it's harder to stay on the candida protocol, meaning minimize sugar, not have cravings. That's the most important thing, is not have cravings. And this most recent go around, it's been about 2 weeks since I've had cravings. But before that, I was like, every night, what is going on here? And it was just where I was in the metals sort of game. So just remember that if you have metals, or if you can't get a handle on your cravings and your candida and your bloating, you probably have metals. You want to look for that. Go to a functional medicine doctor. Do not DIY this. You want data.
100%. And that's what we always say. Like sometimes when you're getting these foundations in place, and that's what's so great about our membership is we really work with you through these foundations. But if you find that it's not getting you to the next level and like you've changed the things and you're still having those cravings, that's where working with a functional team and getting coaching and support will save you so much time and money when you're trying to DIY. It's just, we've seen it time and time again. It really drags things out. It makes things way more expensive in the long run. And you don't have that confidence in the protocol, which I think it's nice to have that trust when you find somebody that you vibe with, like you're trusting the protocol. And when you're doing the work, that's not always easy, like maybe changing your diet or being more like a temporary, more restrictive diet. You that purpose and your confidence on the why behind it. And that makes it all the more easy to stick to your guns.
It's funny. It took me a long time. I did not play sports when I was a kid. And so I didn't really understand the whole concept of working with a coach because I never had a coach. I just didn't do sports. I didn't have a coach. And so I think the concept of having someone who is dedicated to your success and can push you to the very peak of your possible function is really valuable. I discovered this later in life. Like I'm a huge proponent of coaches and I speak to mine 3 times a week.
Yeah. I think it's so great having a coach. It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Dr. Trubow, I'm curious, what do you use to cook your food, like cookware?
I love this question, Danielle. I hate this question. I love this question. Okay.
Yeah.
It's been an evolution because when I first started this process, we like leveled up off the things that had PFAS and PFOE and all that stuff. But we went to similar versions of nonstick that just had different chemicals. And the more you learn, the better the question you can ask. So I've been evolving this because we cook everything. We have celiac, so I don't eat out that often because I do tend to react and I don't like how I feel. So I like to feel comfortable in my body. So we use stainless steel, we use ceramic, and we use cast iron. So we're phasing out the nonstick that we have, we're phasing it out. And I got a lot of pushback because my mom and my mother-in-law also cook in my house. And they're like, what? You're doing what? Wait, those are heavy. You're taking away my pans? I was like, yeah, we're taking it away. And then my mother-in-law's like, you're not taking away the ceramic. I said, no, but if it gets scratched, we are, because underneath it's not clean. It's just the ceramic is okay. It's what's underneath it. So it's really challenging, actually. And it's still a work in progress. We're still looking into what are the options. I have some of my teammates who are doing this research right now, actually.
Oh, okay. I'll have to keep in touch and see where you land, because it's one of those things. The more you know, the more it stresses you out, I think.
Yeah. So this is one of those, like, you do the best with what you have and you don't, and you do, then if you know you're getting exposures, you work on getting rid of what's getting into you, because it's endless. The toxins are endless. And so you do really want to focus on what do you have control and agency over. And I don't know, maybe I'm Pollyannish, but I'm like, I can't think about that. I don't have the brain space to think about it or worry about it because I'm not going to act on it right now. So put it into those buckets, like TBD. I'll deal with you in December.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And also coming back to the thoughts, right? If you're stressing about it every time you're cooking, it creates more stress. So just knowing your body's resilient and can deal with whatever, just giving yourself kind of taking back some of that control and power, just do the best you can with good intentions. And I think that's all you can do.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that.
Okay, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. Where can our listeners find you on social?
Lots of places. So there's lots of places. Okay, so we have anywhere on social. All the social platforms, I have the same name. It's Wendie Trubow, MD. So you can find me across all the social. And our goal is to inspire, empower, and educate. So that's what we try to do on all the different social mediums. We have our clinic, which is called 5 Journeys. And then we have our national brand for people who are into detox. It's called Dirty Girl Detox. And then we have our own podcast called the 5 Journeys Podcast, Live Like You Matter / Feel Freaking Amazing. We're in the process of changing the name. So it's all about feel freaking amazing, basically.
Love it. I'll make sure to link everything in the show notes.
Thank you.
But Wendie, thank you so much for everything and for being here and sharing this wisdom. I think it's so valuable, especially to our burnt out, tired listeners. Like, this is something that is stress on the body. So being more aware, it just lightens the load and it can feel really liberating to start using
every person who's
stuff.
listening, you've got this.
Yeah.
You've got it. Really. Thank you for having me on. This has been great.
Thank you so much.